Hey, what's up? Liron here. Thank you for joining me in today's video. I'm gonna jump straight into it. This is an interesting scene that I think is great for beginners, especially if you're having a hard time maybe managing a large scene where you're not really sure what to paint first, how to make sure you paint everything smoothly, what areas to connect, and so on. I find that these are some challenges that one may face as a beginner. So the reason this is such an effective scene for that is we essentially have a lot of isolated areas we can paint one by one. So very often I see a lot of people just scared to stop with the wash and you know, leave a hard edge once it dries. So I'm going to show you a way, almost a workaround, so that you can work in small sections and not only just have confidence in the full process, but also make the most out of one shape before moving on to the next. And we're going to see this with these stairs that I'm going to share with you. It's going to be, some parts of the process are a little more repetitive, so I'm actually going to do a time lapse at some point, but you will get to see like 90% of the process. So for the drawing, what you see me drawing there for the stairs is just the highlights on the tops. I'm following the shapes I see. Some of these are stairs. It's a staircase in the middle of a city. So it's a very strange one. There's like a garbage can, trash can down at the bottom with some trash in it. There's a wall. It's a very weird scene. The thing that did attract me to paint it is just the beautiful highlights over on the stairs. And you're going to see how they'll connect in a second. So this is probably going to be, now we're getting to the last stair. So this is the highlight for that lowermost stair, under which we're going to have that orange trash can. And if that makes sense, all of these rectangles are actually the highlights. I just painted the highlights. And now I'm adding all of the rest of the details. We have the wall to the left, we have the wall to the right, some foliage up above, and the way this wall connects to the stairs, I'm going to have to move them a little to the right. Now I'm going to try and include like a picture of the sketch stage. I didn't scan it this time because I'm showing you the whole thing. The drawing is relatively simple. You will notice I did not follow it to the T. I made the painting zoom more in on the stairs themselves. I am dividing some of these stairs into, you see the different shapes where I see the bricks that were laid there. Just trying to make it make sense. While we're kind of finishing up the sketch and the details, I will mention this, you know, lately I've been trying to draw more and trace less. Just because I feel like when I draw, it's more of my lines and I end up painting it more authentically. I really don't know why that happens. Something about having it's not really a pre-made sketch. You do the sketch, but because it was traced, it's almost like someone else sketched them, so I'm less familiar with the subject once I draw it. Now, for very complex scenes, I will trace, but for these kinds of scenes, it's relatively simple. I actually preferred not to. So now I am trying to mix a warm gray. This entire painting is bathed in warmth. Everything is warm. And you will see, so I'm starting with this very lightly gray warm color. And you'll notice as I paint the stairs, I will, because I'm working on a small isolated shape, essentially painting between the highlights. I have a lot of time to work on the individual shapes, to feed them wet and wet, to get them to be as dark as I want them to be, and to really make a dent in the progress. This is, instead of painting in multiple glazes and every one of them is maybe covers a different purpose, this is painting one shape at a time. I'm going to dab this because I went overboard there. This is making the most out of a shape with the intent of it being final, finished. Once you're done with an area, it's completely done. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes once it dries, once you gain some new context into the scene, you may end up realizing you need to make changes. Maybe you'll need to add some details. But for the most part, the idea here is to have a finished shape. And you can tell there, if you look at the photo on the very first stair, there's a bit of a grayness in the middle, a little bit more brown on the sides. I'm trying to go with what I'm seeing. Now, where does this shape end? So I decided the wall on the left, I'm just going to make the edges vague. So you'll see me in a second coming back with some water and extending that edge. The reality is you do not have to connect shapes. You can have hard edges in your watercolors. You can do whatever you want. It's very easy to go to an extreme. There's nothing wrong with an extreme as long as it serves what you're after. And I just discover with time that sometimes they just don't. What I'm after more is freedom while painting. So you'll see I'm just making this edge vague and using plenty of water. What this will do is help me when I paint the next step to connect it also with that maybe slightly wet area. Okay, now I am still playing in the warm neutrals. So the colors I'm using are lemon yellow, new gamboge, so a warm and a cool yellow, mostly one red, which is Windsor red, but sometimes I do add a bit of Pyrrole Scarlet, later on you'll see, and neutral tint. These are so far the only colors I'm using. I'm carving out the shape of these bricks. Now, look at how much time I focus on just that area. And if you look at the video, we're almost probably a quarter through. So this is very repetitive. I won't show you all the stairs. I'll show you like 3 and then the last one that looks really interesting. So it's just going to repeat itself. Another stair, look at how I'm merging to the left. Again, one way to give yourself more time is to just use more water. So if I'm using lighter mixes at first now, I'll have a bit more time to come back with darker and darker and darker mixes. And I find that there are some benefits to gradually darkening instead of immediately going with the darkest wet and wet. This isn't a rule. It just depends on what you're after. To me, I found it works quite well that way. So what you'll see me attempting to do is not go immediately into just super dark black, but rather gradually add a bit more black and mix it with a bit of the yellow and mix it with a bit of, just the pre-existing wash that I have on the palette there. It looks quite strong, but, as it is always the case with watercolor, it's going to dry lighter. So it's really nothing. Now, I felt the need to just add a bit of coolness to it because everything is so warm right now. That I don't know, it just felt like some coolness is needed, especially on the wall to the left. Now you'll notice again, I still haven't officially painted that wall. I'm just making it kind of appear there very vaguely. Again, no rules. You can paint however you want. You can decide to have a lot of hard edges, soft edges. Together, you decide where one shape begins and other ends. There's really no rule here. This started to dry, who cares? I'm touching it with a wet paint and letting it reawaken. Now I'm starting, you'll notice, with a bit more of a yellow wash. And I'm going to start feeding it with my neutral tint and gradually kind of push it, a bit of yellow there as well in the mix. And the idea is, again, you get some time to work on every step, every stair individually, with the intent of it being done. So even though it looks like we're devoting a lot of time, so we're like 8 minutes into the video, that includes the drawing stage, so it's not even that much time considering these stairs are mostly done. Mostly, you'll see why in a second. Well, I can tell you why, but we'll go through time-lapse. You'll see a very similar process. Now I'm starting with a bit more of a brown-red, and expanding a bit of wet and wet, expanding the left side. I'm just going to continue with that until the last step. My intent was to leave the paper white as the highlight, but the more the painting progressed, I realized that the highlights need to be warm. They cannot be neutral. Sometimes the neutral paper white works really well for highlights. Other times it just doesn't. It's not an objective thing, it's subjective. It's what I see. The way I saw it this time, it didn't work for me. Now look at how I'm becoming more daring the more stairs I paint. For that last one, I really added a lot of yellow and red individually. That's a part of the natural progression of loosening up as you paint. But in any case, yeah, I'm going to work on that final stair. And you'll notice that, again, the stairs are mostly done. The highlights are yellow or white. I'm going to do a thin glaze at the end to make them yellow and also cover some of the stairs. You'll see. That's something not that difficult to do, and I sometimes work that way. So I'm going to create a darker orangey red, start feeding this wet and wet. Could have started lighter, actually, with this one, but I decided to just really darken it fast. and warm it up and gradually add a bit more of the neutral tint to really get it to be dark. This is the stair that's closest to us, so I'm trying to make sure it's dark enough so that there's a bit of a sense of depth in there. And after we'll be done with that, what's missing is the bottom section, the wall to the right, the sky. These are actually quite simple areas. The more involved and complex areas are these stairs, because I wanted to make them believable. I want them to read as bricks, whatever details. And don't forget, you can add a lot of details to them later on once it dries with just another layer, very gentle. You can do a lot of things here. So I'm going to connect that wash. Hopefully there isn't an alarm. I heard a boom. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to bail on the recording. I'm adding yellow here down to the bottom. Ruth is barking. My apologies. The idea is for this yellow to, I would say, make a gap and allow me some time to work as I make my way down to the bottom. Using very wet paint just will give me more time, and it will. You see how it didn't destroy the edge of that last stair. It actually looks good. Usually, if the very dark paint is above and the very light paint is below and gravity helps the paint move down, you will be okay if you do it that way. Usually it works. So now I'm working on that wall to the right. It's mostly warm. Everything is warm here. But one thing you will notice is how the top of the wall is a bit more towards the gray, and the bottom of the wall is a little more fiery warm and also lighter. This happens because there's a lot of reflected light from the ground up to the wall. Sorry about that. I just had to text someone, sorry. And then the top of the wall, you see it's neutral. It's just a little bit more towards the gray, okay? It's not a huge difference, but it is quite visible. So top a little darker, a little more neutral, bottom a little lighter and a little warmer. These are corrections I'm going to make later on, but for now, because the stairs have been so involved and more detailed and more finalized, I am trying to get away with some very smooth washes here. So I'm merging all the foliage to the right and that little whatever plant that is and the wall itself. Trying to merge it and combine it into one wash as much as I can. I'll probably add the sky in a second. You'll see I'll add the sky there above too, and it will all read as very much as supportive actor to the walls that are the main actor. Now you see I added a bit of the pile scarlet this time, and for that lower trash can area. By the way, the previous wash is fully dry, if I'm not mistaken, or almost fully dry. That's fine. I don't mind getting some backgrounds on the bottom. Honestly, it's okay as long as the center of the scene is clear and it looks good. Now I felt like darkening a bit of that area closer to the stairs because it's a little darker there. It's something I'll get in a second again because I want to darken that entire wall on the right side. I could have probably gotten it in one go, but it was a little bit of a challenge, honestly, so I didn't. Adding these shadows onto that, I don't know what it is, like a piece of metal, like scrap metal thrown there. It's a mess. This staircase was a mess. And yeah, pretty much it. Trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that wall to the right. The bottom is warmer, but it's also lighter, so I'm kind of throwing my colors there and seeing what happens. While it's still wet, you can do a lot, so I'm not too worried. Just kind of trying things out and seeing whether they work or not. So yeah, that concludes kind of the wall to the right. But you see, I'm still making the most out of this wet and wet section if I can, because the areas immediately under the plant and the plant itself, honestly, are quite dark. And thanks to that, the wet and wet here can really help us achieve that. Not sure what I'm trying to do there towards the bottom. It actually shouldn't be darker. I don't even remember doing it now that I look at it, funny enough. Maybe I'm just trying to get some of the patterns on the walls in one go. I'm not sure. But I guess everything will need some darkening. And look at the wall to the left of the stairs. It kind of just showed up It's not unified because every stair was painted individually with different colors. We will unify it in the next wash, so don't worry about that. It's actually going to work out quite nicely. I'm going to make the tree go all the way to the left of the page, and then the wall will be under it. So it's almost like this wall only reaches the height of the top stair, if that makes sense. Now I'm mixing a bit of French ultramarine. So far I have been using phthalo blue. This is French ultramarine for the sky. Honestly, what I'm looking for is a clean blue that's very light. So I added a lot of water there. I'm just looking for that nice little grayed out blue. It doesn't have to be very blue. It doesn't have to be very phthalo-ish, just a bit. So I poured in a bit of phthalo blue onto that. And you know, phthalo blue, you just touch it and it just looks like a lot. But I used the French ultramarine as a base, painting it all the way to the bottom. Painting the sky is almost just a window shape that connects to the top of the painting. So it's more of a compositional means, honestly. Now, I think at this point I'm bringing in my other palette. I'm going to bring in a green from there. But that green is too artificial, so I'll probably not use that. I'll end up using just my normal lemon yellow there. So, you know, I'm going to put that green. It looked really bright, but this ended up being so artificial looking that I just scraped that. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. I think it's just about the ability to see the color as it is. So I'm using a lemony yellow, but from my other palette off screen. It's the same, it doesn't matter really. One of my weaknesses has been colors. The paintings of mine that I like the most, all the colors in them are also quite good and high quality. So this is something I'm working on still. I have improved greatly. I'm much better at matching colors now. If I just focus on matching the color, I can do it really well. But as a part of a big scene, I'm also much better at it than I was before. Some colors are really hard to match, but most of them are, you know, they're not too bad. And honestly, even if you're 70% accurate, it's still going to look good and look close to the source. Even if you change the colors, it's going to look good as long as you're, you know, you have an interesting composition, you have good shapes, you have, you know, you have a sense for how it all works together, I would say. Now, one thing I'm trying to do here is just leave that highlight on the top stair, because you do see it. And notice how now that there's blue and green and now yellow that I'm going to put as a base wash for the trees on the left, the paper white begins to be, to me at least, a bit of an eyesore. At this point, I figured, you know, I'll probably need to glaze it over with a yellow. And that works quite well because everything feels like it should be more yellow down below. So I just decided to cover the whole thing with yellow. But there's still time for that because we're going to first finish up with all the foliage. Look at the background, crazy background I got from adding very wet paint next to the sky and having that water push back on the blue pigment. That is honestly not an issue. If you start trying to fix it now, you'll end up probably destroying it. You could now paint over the entire blue. In theory, you could salvage it. You could. The worst thing you can do is get a paper towel, from my experience, and try and kind of blend that in. Here's the wall to the left, just painting it straight top to bottom wall. I'd much rather let that cauliflower dry. See what it does and probably just leave it as is. Honestly, it's so unimportant. So you see that wall is getting darker the lower it goes. I'm trying to recreate that sense. The lower it goes, the more, the darker and more, I would say, gray, almost purple it becomes. And I decided to paint it all the way down to the bottom, kind of connect it to the trash can. Really just going with a very direct kind of channeling of what I see, what I paint. I see this, I paint this. I see that, I paint that. That's how I painted the pear and the grapes in the previous video. And that's how I painted another process that I'm very proud of, that I'll show you soon. That it's, again, these processes, this one, the other one I will share with you, it's almost like I really managed to drop the whole concept of technique and just paint how I feel like. And a lot of the benefits, I think, is the paintings look more like me. It's kind of like my thing. Doesn't look like anything else, really. And that comes with the downsides of, a bit less of a polish. I don't know what it is, but some scenes when I work really slowly and methodically, and maybe it's just a matter of mood and trace and all of that, I end up with a much better result. And sometimes it's completely counterproductive, and I'll be doing much better job if I just jump into water, so to speak, and let things kind of happen naturally. So what we're gonna do next is, now I'm actually contemplating what to do with the yellow, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think the stairs are still dry. And I need to work on that wall to the right. Oh yeah, I remember. I'm now just going over the highlights to darken them a bit with the yellow. But it's gonna be a very light yellow. This is even too dark, so I'll promptly grab a bit of water and just make sure it's all... I actually think I'm just gonna paint over a few stairs and stop. I didn't even remember this stage, even though I filmed this like 2 days ago. There's a lot on my mind, and every day now feels like a week, so sorry about that. Maybe I'll cover the whole thing, maybe I won't. I actually don't remember. But I guess, yeah, once I covered it, I'm like, okay, it looks better, but I feel like I still need to strengthen and yellow everything down, which is why I waited for it to dry. So now two main things we'll work on: the wall on the right and the stairs. Now the wall on the right, start neutral and darker on the top, and finish lighter and warmer on the bottom. I'll probably start here from the top and just kind of gently start with light paint. I don't want to push this too dark. Sometimes that can happen too, so I'm kind of testing it out, seeing how it feels. One thing I do know is that a lot of things here are too light, so I'm just trying to figure out what to push to be darker and where. I'll probably introduce some more water as well to gently, see here, a bit more water, gently make this a little lighter, and gradually transition into the warm, lighter value that was there earlier. However, that warm value that was there earlier is still too light, and I figured that out really quick, and then I'll add a bit of red to the mix, and yeah. So for now, I'm like, okay, this is going to stop here. But if you look at it from afar, the lower sections are too light. It's too light. Sometimes just things don't feel like they have depth. Things feel like they don't connect. Usually something is too light in that case. If something is too dark, usually it looks ugly and it jumps at me. That's how I feel about these things. Everyone will have their own way of seeing things. I did want to add a bit of that shadow wet and wet. There are jets going above us all the time. Sorry, I don't know how much of it comes through the recording, so sorry if it does. So now I'm going to mix that yellow. I may cover the whole thing with that yellow, or I may now mix the orange color I'm after. I actually don't remember. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so I'm adding a bit of orange, a bit of warmth there. That's probably going to go to the whole thing, yeah. So I'm covering the whole thing up. If I stay quiet, maybe you'll hear the planes. I don't know if you can hear them in the background. So yeah, I'm covering the whole thing with a thin yellow. The goal is to warm everything up, including the paper white highlights, formerly paper white, that I then added on top of. It just wasn't warm enough. So here we go, warming it some more. That's just something that is going to happen from time to time. I am using, you'll just need to, darken full large areas. I have seen one artist, can you hear this? Planes all day long. I have been I've seen one artist, David Taylor was it, that does this. He'll leave a large area to be washed, to be painted as a big wash after the fact. Even the sky sometimes, it just looks fantastic. I don't know how he does it to this day. But yeah, I'm gonna go over the wall, the stairs. Right now I'm skipping the stairs. Yeah, I'm gonna paint over the whole thing. I remember doing that. Yeah, a bit more yellow. I need this to feel yellow. That's the thing. It just didn't feel warm enough. Now this looks very strong, but don't worry. It's gonna dry lighter, make things fall into context. It's gonna work out really well. This is a wash I'm quite confident in, and I'm happy I did. Just pushing everything to be a little warmer. I could have probably pushed some stairs to be darker, but honestly, I didn't feel like it. I wanted to keep them still low, high key to see what's going on in the stairs nuances. You will see later on with the scan too, you'll get a bit of a better view of what it looks like, and you'll see probably why I did it. I do want to add a bit of warmth, and again, to the bottom wall, just to make it be more prominent, the bottom of the right side wall. Yeah, and I'm lifting back some of these highlights, I remember now. Yeah. Not all of them, though. Just the ones that are close. I think that's the thing I confused with. Just a few of the details. Not everything, I think. We'll see. Maybe I'll use a tissue also. Sometimes I like to use the brush, sometimes the tissue. But I guess we're really close to finishing this. Really not much left. Just as a quick, we're not concluding just yet, but as a quick little lesson again, if you work in small individual shapes, the one thing you're getting from it is you can work slower and more meticulously and gradually push the wash to look the way you want it to. I'm just going to add a few highlights on that plant and the wall. You can push things more gradually to look the way you want them to. And you can really focus on one area. The possible downside, though it's not really a downside, is if you want to have more of your shapes appear merged. But honestly, I don't think this feels like a lot of fragmented shapes. This feels fine to me. So who knows, you know? Just adding a few of these smaller details here and there. I really remember making the bottom of that wall to the right more red. I'll probably do it. I don't know why it happens so late in the process, but I'll probably do it. A few of these details, there's a bit of, I don't know what it is, grass or something on the stairs themselves between the cracks of the stones. That's something I also wanted to convey there. And we'll go ahead and warm and darken this lower section up. Again, look at I'm not too scared of, having a hard edge in the shape. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. I'm even going to darken that lower section just a bit more. Make it a little stronger. It needs more of the Pyrrole Scarlet. Here it is again. You can probably hear it. And yeah, this one's really close to finishing it. I will show you sign it and show you the finished scan. And you can let me know your thoughts in the description box. Again, if there's one lesson, this is the more accurate colors too, by the way, and here are some details up close. If there's one lesson to take from this of a possible experimentation is, can you paint with smaller individual shapes, thus giving yourself more time to work on something and really processing it to look just the way you want it to. I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the frustration-free watercolor course if you want to learn how to let go, enjoy the painting process, get the results you want, and it's a huge support of me, so thank you so much for doing that. I also want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. Could not do a lot of what I'm doing here without you, so thank you so much. If you want to receive credits at the end of the videos, be sure to check that out. I will put links to everything below. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again in the next video. Till next time, take care and stay safe.